Okay, so we've had a few that did not make it. Hopefully they'll come in a little bit later. Holidays are starting to creep up on us. I think these events are extremely important because it gives you a little bit better understanding about our strategic focus. One of the things, and you'll see in our presentation, is that the customer always wants more control. They want more control in the direction of the decisions that are being made. They don't want more work, right? But they want more control. So hopefully we're going to talk about what we're doing in that area. You can't get away from everything completely, right? But the presentation will talk about some of the advents. The PRM, I mean, when you look at PRM systems, which is a partner resource management system, and then you have SFA and you have CRM and you have a lot of systems. The problem with the systems are they're not built generally for government. They're not built to do what we need to do in here. So after 35 years of building systems in this space and managing the space from process and other things, there's no way around it. We have to build the tools that are going to help the channel become more successful. In turn, helping us get greater efficiencies and accountability, certifications, all visibility, transparency, transformation, say whatever word you want. So that's part of what we're doing today. 1 year ago today, it was on the 18th of November last year, we held this event, and we're kind of looking back now at the report card kind of mechanism of what we talked about back then. That's what we're going to do for the next hour, and we're going to carry that forward. We're going to tell you, in that report card, what have we done? What have been the successes? Where have we migrated to? And then a little bit more about where we're going. Because two things are for sure. The strategic plan that was developed November 4th or November 18th forward incorporated a lot of things, all that have come to realization now. And so the pre-PMO activities, for most of you, really involve business development. That's why they're called pre-PMO. PMO activities really center around operations, right? The award happened, we did a good job in business development, and now we're full up in operations. Well, one of the things that we did is we created a joint venture along the way, recognizing how difficult the landscape's getting, right? Now we're starting to crack the code. I think Jack can attest, I think just on 3 efforts that we've done recently with Jack. One, we were in the running to have awarded. Unfortunately, the government made a decision. We have one right now that's pending award, which I don't know if we have any.
No news, but it looks like we're going to win.
Okay, good. So, so that's good because that's the goal of the joint venture, is to win contracts and obviously build everybody's business here. Everybody's business, your businesses are one business. The joint venture is building, you're a part of the joint venture. We build and win in the joint venture. We build and win for the partners of the joint venture, which is your independent companies. Next slide. Okay, so 4 items that we're going to try and cover today. And you can see a lot of acronyms over on the right there. Those are acronyms that we deal with every day, right? And they are real parts of our business. I would just highlight that the IPMO is really where we position. It's the intelligence and the research. A lot of people talk to me about GovWin and Bloomberg. Yeah, we're subscribers to those too. We gather all that data, right? So we have that data, we utilize that data, we model that data. We understand after 35 years what the data means, what its positive attributes are, and what its negative attributes are. Its negative attributes are, it's historical data. It's old. It's not new. It's old data. So validation and verification is key there, because if you're managing pipelines around old data, you have to verify if that data is accurate. Because 9 times out of 10, it's not accurate. So there's been a lot of movement. So that takes a lot of time for us to do, and we kill a lot of programs because the data is inaccurate. The programs have changed, the buyers have gone in a different direction. You have 3 areas. You have leadership, which we got a little tough lesson here in the last couple of weeks. Leadership made a decision to award a contract to somebody else that we thought we had. You have acquisition, and you have program level, right? So you've got 3 theaters there that you have to kind of control and have to understand what's going on inside those areas. Pre-PMO is all the activity from the IPMO, which is, you know, talking to people like Randy, the customer. He's telling us when things are coming out. He's keeping us abreast of what's happening, and we're able to true up the IPMO to real opportunities and vet them. Okay, the pre-PMO then is running that down. A pre-PMO could sit in there for 9 months or 9 months or less, generally, running it to the ground to get a bid decision, get a pursuit decision to be able to go after it. And there's a lot of information there. And the PRM is going to kind of center around that because that IPMO and that pre-PMO activity are so important. So when people come to you ad hocly and ask you to do a gap analysis, or they ask you any number of questions, they ask you for a SME, it's kind of, it seems like when we have conversations, it's coming out of nowhere, right? You're just, you know, it's just coming at you and you're like, oh, we don't have resources or whatever it is. So we have to build that transparency in there a little better. Transparency is control. It's one of the complaints that it's one of the challenges that we have from you, right? More control, more visibility. That's what the PRM is about. And we want your participation. We want your magic, you know. You have relationships, you have SMEs, you have technology that you have used that has been successful. We need to know more about that. And then the EPMO. EPMO comes down, it's all the back office systems, billing, and in the joint venture, it's big one, it's STAHL that has to tilt up the DCAA compliant cost accounting systems, purchasing systems, all of that back office that then flows down to our PMO leads that are running the task orders. So that's more infrastructure that we're dealing with. So,
Can I add something?
yeah, absolutely.
So, in FedSim, one of our biggest challenges is you have to have a certified cost accounting system and a certified cost procurement system to bid on FedSim. Because over 84, 85% of our business is DOT. And even on that, we do, and this is why this is so important, we don't do LPTA, flat out. We do best value, meaning, I know best value is associated with lowest price technically acceptable, but we release the cost range in advance. You get the cost range. You have to bid in the cost range. My biggest challenge with you guys is you bid at the bottom of the cost range. I don't understand that. But it's important that he has that ability for you to get that as a group, as the joint venture, the cost procurement, the cost.
Right, and the joint venture allows us some interplay to be able to use the partners' capability along as the joint venture is maturing itself. So it's a very desirable situation to have. Okay, so 4 items that we're going to cover in the presentation today, which is,
Can I ask,
oh, I'm sorry.
Randy, one question?
Sure.
The certified accounting system, can that be from a third party?
So
Does that
that's
have to be
great,
by
a
DCA?
great question. So when you're doing the self-scoring, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, everything's going to self-scoring. The self-scoring, yes, sometimes they will allow you to do a third-party certification, but it's not going to be the same amount of points as a DCAA or DCMA. I always get confused with who does that. And you'll eventually have to have a DCAA or DCMA system.
Is there a way to request that?
Nope.
I know.
DOD only.
Try.
Once you get like a cost reimbursable contract or T&M contract, then they can force it in at that point in time.
And they're a 2-year backlog right now.
Wow. Yeah, it's tough, yeah. So we have 4 areas. You're listening to my preamble right now, which is going to go on, I'm sorry, for 60 minutes, but it's a lot of historical data from the 18th of November forward that we're going to, again, talk through that report card. We're staying the course with a lot of that stuff, and there's been a lot of new changes that are on the horizon. Also new challenges, so we're going to talk through that. We're going to talk about the Gate Zero forecast and framework, which is really in our now crossing over from pre-PMO to PMO activity, which is very good news. And we're going to talk about the process execution. We have divided our channel into tiers, and it has to do with your maturity and your capability to perform. And it also deals with really the maturity and how we can use you and how you can use us. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The onboarding process then will be turned over. That will happen after lunch to Charles, and he's going to start taking data in. So we're going to open you up to the PRM system. Each of you is going to have the PRM system. You can have as many people in your company on that system as you want to have inside there. That PRM system gives us and everybody else visibility, as much visibility as you want us to have, into who you are. I've heard a lot of the members say, especially our training members and other people saying, I want to work with the other members. Our charter is to make that available. We're doing that with a PRM system, but our real charter is to drive revenue. I think they're synonymous, but we don't want to get too far right of center, just being a marketing house. That's not what we are. It's a part of what we do. So you will be able to use the system, contact people, and get your message out there. So everybody will have that, and there's a lot to show there. Unbelievable system. We're building it out. I think it's going to serve everybody very well. Okay. Yes, sure.
Charles just mentioned something to me which is really important now. There's a little bit of a different set of people here in some cases, you know, where we don't have the emails yet. We need to, in the break, get back to the system and get you into the system with your emails. So if you have a chance, when you have a chance, send me your emails over for everybody who is in here right now. Most of you, of course, we have gotten that already, but for instance, I don't know if we have Ron, whether we have Sarisa, whether we have Joanna, etc. So if everybody could send an email with your email, which you're going to use in the CRM system later on. PRM system, then we can set it up.
Yeah, so to be clear there, the thing is we've set up certain people in your company as the administrator. So if they're not here, then, so what's happening is you're gonna get an email, you know, so we'll set you up offsite as an administrator so you'll be able to put the data in, because otherwise someone who's not here is gonna be getting the email. So we need to make sure whoever's here for your company, we set up as an administrator, you'll get an email and set up your password and you'll be able to get it at PRM. So some of you are set up, some of you aren't. So we just need to make sure all of you that are here, at least one person from your company can be inputting the information.
Okay, so at lunch, you know, see them and they'll help you get dialed in so that
We'll
after.
do it if you give it to us at the break.
Okay, that's fine. He was asking me how to get it to you. Do you have an email address? Oh, very good, sorry. Okay, wonderful.
I can't see
Yes,
from
sir.
here, is there punctuation in the email address?
There's Thomas dot, yes,
Okay.
Thomas dot @stahl-companies.
Okay, to piggyback on that comment, now that we've surfaced that, some important parts about this, the reason why we need your email, the system has to be valuable for you. I don't know if you work in accounting at your firm or whether you work in, you're a COO or you're a CEO at your firm. Your functional role may be business development, it may be finance, it may be what it is. You have an interest, a finance person may come here and want to hear from the other people about what Jack just said, what they're doing in DCAA, okay? So he has a different purpose. He might not be interested in the pursuits, but he knows in the operational end, he's gonna bear the brunt of those pursuits, or bear the brunt of having to give information to qualify for the pursuits. It's very important. So the system really locks down on two things. It locks down on who your company is and who you are, and everybody in your company. Okay, so as your people move online, they have their own profile, they have a job, they have a ROSI inside their corporation, and some of them are business development, and some of them are operational people, some of them are program management people. They all have a different reason for being there. So the system is looking through that and identifying that and trying to build value to the actual end users. Okay, it's a one-of-a-kind platform. You know, we use technology from the open market and we have to go in and completely redesign it. And that's what's happening with this technology. We've gone in and completely redesigned the technology to actually behave the way it's supposed to be to behave. It's a soft launch. It's not perfect, right? And it's got a long ways to go because every module that they have does not behave. And the interrelationships of this system has to integrate with other systems to behave properly. We're qualified to be able to do that, so that's why we're building it out. We're literally building out the systems to get that behavior, because that behavior translates into production, quality, the visibility to our customers. Very, very important. Okay, so the purpose is to align the systems and tools to gain efficiencies, obviously drive production and revenue. We want the processes to be sustainable, repeatable. It's not in our marketplace. If you talk to anybody, they got 10, 12 tools that they're using, and one person knows how to use them, but the others don't. Tools also come down to the personas, right? If I'm a finance guy, I don't really care about BD. I'm off in finance. I care about DCAA. I care about how systems and workflow and process maybe affect my department. So it's important that we reach everybody. And then, of course, the architecting, the engineering, and the automation is key to all of that, and that's what STAHL's providing. Next slide. So our framework, we have a framework that is working with our strategic plan. We have obviously a portfolio of services and products that sit inside here, and we need to learn how to use that portfolio to develop suites of services and products. I think we just heard from Greg said, I live in a fixed firm price world. All right, well that might be a suite of companies or products depending on the scope of work in which the government's looking for that we need to talk about to be able to develop so that those programs can be bid on, or we can position ourselves in front of the government to be able to take advantage of it. So that becomes very important. You know, the strategic business groups and the integrated project teams, they're all utilizing all aspects of that platform. So from quality to our SharePoint solutions to our PRM system and other tools, they're being brought in to the total, you know, the total operational aspects of our conceptual operation and down into our SOPs. Next slide. So our organization is not that big, but that is our end result of our organization. Very hard to see, I apologize. You guys get a digital copy of this after. We're filling in now to the second line and down into the third line, okay? And so it'll take us some time, but as we mature every year, those items are being filled. So there are people that are wearing a lot of hats. Our strategic, some of our strategic plan really centers around 4 agencies. No, it's not 63 agencies and 90,000 buying offices. We can't do that. It's impossible. Where do you think our 4 agencies come from? You. The cross-section of your past performance, your buyers. That's what we're looking at. So we're looking at the cross-section of your past performance, your buyers, and we're starting to figure out what agencies we have in common that we can utilize, all the people, the relationships, and all of the past performance. It makes up, and we're focusing on the buying offices where we have relationships, and we're focusing on multiple efforts coming out of those buying. People buy from people they know. That's a cardinal rule. They can run a procurement, but we know, right? We had an award that got taken away from us. Guarantee you it was a relationship, and I don't argue it because that means we got out-positioned, and that's part of the job. It's not a situation where it's black and white. Relationships matter, and thank God for that because we understand that. And we're building systems and we're building the processes to be able to explore those relationships and compound what we have. Now, tri-state means that STAHL can call on them. You get in a car, you can drive out and visit them, and I do. Jack does, I'm sure other people do. Having relationships with your buyers are very important. I talk to my buyers all week, you know. Mid-Atlantic, a little farther reach, but if I have to go to North Carolina, I'm in a car, I'll go to North Carolina, climb on a plane, whatever I have to do. And then of course, CONUS and OCONUS really opens up the depth and breadth. We have Randy here, he would love to see us in OCONUS, right? We're not shaped properly yet, but we're working in that direction, and we will get there. We're very close. top vehicles. Well, when you choose those 4 agencies, you better have the vehicles to service those agencies. So it's no secret why we partnered with Jack. Not only is he a great guy, handsome, and he's a world traveler, and
First and third.
yeah, okay.
First and third apply.
But Jack has ITIS and CIOSP, 2 very important vehicles for us. We weren't going to be able to bid those in this last year, so we had to partner up. So we were fortunate to form an alliance with Jack. He's fantastic. His ethics are unbelievable, which I really like, because dealing with somebody who has sound ethics, and not only that, as a former contracting officer and decorated official, has that. So, and then we have our Marcom investments, and Marcom is very important because that's hard money that we spend in directions to seed and position ourselves to those vehicles and to those agencies. The service offering right now, the way we looked at it, of course, STAHL, which plays the STAHL Consulting, that plays the program manager, but then we have Big One, which is the joint venture, and now we are adding the agency advisors. So we are rapidly now in concert talking with PricewaterhouseCoopers and others who are agency advisors to the agencies, because STAHL can take a commission to them to do a security audit, do surveys, do whatever we want. As we position in that, then guess who the benefactor of that is? You, Big One. So we're now running CIO campaigns this year that are being tilted up, and we're getting ready very strategically and tactically with agencies that know us to be able to deploy that. And that is going to result in your subject matter experts being given meetings with the customer to solve problems. Next slide. I've heard a lot of times for companies that, we join a joint venture. It really doesn't have to do with joint ventures. It has to do with prime sub relationships. Well, the joint venture is a prime sub relationship, isn't it? Really? I mean, you are an owner of the company, but it is still a prime sub relationship. Well, the problem with prime sub relationships is that you don't own part of the prime, right? That's what's different about the joint venture. The other side of the prime sub relationship also is that I've heard that they get taken advantage of. They have a couple good years and then they start driving down their rates, and that's by design. The PMs are there. The PMs are not business developers, and their management is pushing them for organic growth. That means you're out. You're on the chopping block, because for him to get organic growth, he has to figure out how to take your business away from you, changing labor categories, getting better prices. He has to increase the bottom line, and he's bonused to do it. So I don't care what your relationship is, his family or you. It's diametrically opposed. So by the very nature, prime sub relationships work for a while, but they're a stepping stone. They're not going to be, it's what we call churn business. You're going to have churn business. You'll have it for a couple years, 2-3 years. Maybe you're able to really work a fantastic relationship and be there for the duration, but it's hard, I will tell you that. Next slide. So we provide, anyway, the activities, the risk, the policy, and the governance. We don't have a stake in that game. STAHL is not a performer, right? It's the program management arm of you who are the performers. So we don't have a stake in the game. We're not an operator, right? We're a management firm that helps manage the process better. Next slide. So we go through a lot of this planning, and it's a lot that goes on in there. And this is just meant to give you an idea, right? There's a lot of ratchets, and this is just a few. They go well beyond this, of things that we have to look at to program our strategy. But our strategy is centered around you. To do that well, we need to do that better, right? We're pretty good, but we need to do a better job. As a CEO of the company, that's my job, is to know what we're not as proficient in and strengthen it. So this area is the reason why the PRM exists. I need to know better about you, who you are, to do a better job at strategic planning. So as we open up the PRM, and as you're telling me all the data that is who you are, that stays within the joint venture, that's proprietary. As you guys let it out, it's up to you, right? That's at your discretion, right? But we're using it in the back end of the IPMO to do the planning and strategic targeting around pursuits. Just as an example, and Greg, you're kind of exempt from this, so I'm sorry. But just as an example, if Endeavor told me that, hey, we have a government contract and it's with the State Department and this is my buying group, trackers are going on that immediately. We're immediately looking at every program that's coming out of the State Department that sits around that buyer because we have a relationship. And Jack and I have been having a lot of talk about this because he's in a very similar situation. He has the same problem I have, you know, so we're kind of joining forces there, steel sharpens steel, right? To be able to get that right, because we're in his pipeline, we're also utilizing his companies, right? So our goal would be eventually to get all the companies on here so that, number one, you have a larger pool, we have deeper resources, and together we can be successful. That's the key. Together we can be successful. In this environment, it's hard to be singled out as a small business. I think you were telling me about scaling. This is a scaling event. That's what we're talking about. Next slide. Okay, so report card. November we came out and we started looking, realizing, okay, a little known fact about joint ventures, and Jack educates me on this all the time. He's like, you know, as a joint venture, you can only win 3 contracts and you're out. You can have as many wins as a subcontractor as you want, henceforth is the reason why we're with Jack also, because I can win, you know, all the business I want as a subcontractor, but as a prime on a joint venture on a vehicle, we can win 3, or 2 with a large direct contract, but it's 3 contracts as a prime contractor. That's it. So for you to make this, to make it advantageous, is the reason why we target vehicles. Because winning one vehicle that has 10 years and $40 billion on it, I can win as many task orders as I want on that vehicle, 1,000 if I want to. And the task order process is actually pretty favorable. And we'll get to that a little bit later on in the second half of our presentation, because I think we're really starting to crack the code on this now. RFIs, I will just tell you, well, I'll save it for later. I was getting off there because I'm excited about it. But, so, Jack gave us access to CIOSP 3 and now CIOSP 4. So we'll have that access for some time, assuming he wins CIOSP 4, but I'm pretty assured that he will. ITES 3, we won STARS 3. STARS 3, we would be willing to entertain and converse. If we have STARS 3 within the channel, we will look at that. But we also won STARS 3 for Vista. That all happened this year. And now our newest is SEC IT. We bid SEC IT with the SEC. We have a very good relationship with the SEC, as do we with the NRC, and we'll bid Glinda. When Glinda comes out with the NRC, we've been asked by NRC to bid it. So they recognize what we're doing here and they're tracking, because we bring it to them, we tell them what we're doing here. Okay, so SEC is the newest one to just be added. So when we did not win the SEC vehicles, the first time we've never won a vehicle. And we were rated very high on the scorecard. But the customer has the final say-so, and they awarded to their subcontractors first. And they told us they only wanted to have a certain amount of seats. That's all they wanted. They awarded, and they gave us they took us into a meeting and they told us that they wanted us to get on a team and earn our way in. So it was very disappointing, because we never lost a vehicle. We lost that one, but they opened the door. So we are now with ISI, and ISI now is our vehicle partner there. So we will get them in. How you doing? Just grab a seat anywhere.
Anywhere?
Yeah,
Thanks.
and when you're ready, we'll have you, give us your elevator pitch there, and we'll continue forward. Okay, so those have all been performed, and we are now working on those vehicles actively this year. Okay, and we're starting to have success, and things are happening. DOC CATS and Polaris. CATS we're in the thick of right now, so we're responding to CATS right now. Volume 1 is done, it's going in as we speak, and Volume 2 is now being worked on. CATS will be a vehicle that everybody will be able to enjoy. Polaris on CATS is Department of Commerce. So you can see kind of how we're spreading out. You've got Army, you've got GSA, you've got Department of Commerce, again, Polaris, GSA, and SEC, and soon NRC. So our core agencies and our strategic plan is starting to move in that direction. Now, as we get more information from you on your past performance, we will begin to then recalibrate and continue to dialogue with you and the past performances going in that direction. Some people don't have government past performance. So does that make you any less valuable? No. Past performance is what drives us in a direction because it drives a large portion of the evaluation factor, but it's one of 4 main criteria of the evaluation factor. There are others that will drive that also. Commercial past performance is also valid. So if you don't have government past performance, your commercial past performance. There are nuances around that, whether we have, we've had conversations with people in a room where they might be in the black world or they might be in the commercial world, they might have relationships, they don't necessarily want to jump out there and talk about them, and they certainly don't want a conflict. And I have more than one person in this room that has told me that. That's okay, because that's one evaluator. Others have the evaluators, and you have other valuable insights that you can provide, and I'm going to show you what they are. So benefits of the JV, we're now getting locked into the right vehicles. Vehicles are now being sustainable and repeatable, the processes. We're learning more about you. The PRM system is going to be really critical to that because it's going to allow us to gap you. We've sent gaps, I know we've sent them out to most of you. We've sent out gaps, and gaps take a while to be able to, you won't have to do a gap in the future. Gaps are going to be automated, right down to the functional level of the PWSs. So in the inception, our people will be gapping you based on your past performance as we're automating it, because we learn from doing, right? We are practitioners, and as the practitioners, we'll be able to build the automated gap system. That will increase our ability to respond to RFIs and be able to position you for work, which means that we don't have to have unnecessary conversations. We'll be able to gap you and tell you where that work is and what work fits you. And the key is to align the strategy of where we're going with your past performance so that we can gap and you can be contacted more and more. Next slide. Next slide. Wow, wrong way. Okay. So everybody's seeing this chart, and we deal with this chart, and it starts down here in 0 land, which is way out, right? Way out, a year out, and it's long-term positioning, and that's where our marketing is done and whatnot. As STAHL goes forward, more and more, our work will be done in the opposite direction, but we're already pretty proficient there. 90% of our work is going to be done coming in this direction, right? If my buyer for GSA here is going to be at 5 events this year, where do you think I want to be? So our events management is going to have to start tracking him, right? And we're going to need to know where he is and how to get to him. And we're going to need to be ready with his fixed firm price quote and his services, because he doesn't give rates, you know, on a GSA basis or whatever. So we have to send the message. So a lot of our job is going to be in positioning and making sure that we are very close as trusted people, trusted vendors to our vendor network, our buyer network. So you'll hear us focus on the buyers a lot. Well, the buyers and you are where we're matching things. That's where it gets really, really important. Next slide. So tier 1s, let's talk about that. Tier 1 is a new area that the company has identified, and there's no bias between tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3. It's a maturity, right? It is a maturity thing, and the goal is to get revenue, right? And so, since STAHL is not an operator, we're only interested in fairness, right? We're not interested in giving this to him or giving that to them. We're interested in being fair to the JV. So ethics is really, really important here, and you don't get it in a prime-sub relationship, but you will get it in this joint venture, okay? Because that's not where we make our money. And we know that is where you make your money, right? So it has to work, it has to have good cadence for everybody. So tier 1 is going to focus on, of course, building the service catalog, which we've already started doing. So we started building the service catalog this year, which has to do with rates, it has to do with what you do. It is gonna end up being a service catalog for BIC 1, which ends up translating into Schedule 70 and a whole bunch of other things that have to get built. So we're working on that. The tier 1s provide past performance, right? They don't take a prime position because they don't have the past performance to do it, right? They serve in the capacity so that they can get the performance role and they can get revenue, which is really important. And you'll see this definition in tier 2 and tier 3. So each one will be completely defined, but it is in the BDCMM, right? It has to do with the BDCMM, which is the capability maturity model for our industry of what we do, right? So we're simply dialoguing and pulling people in here. There are a lot of companies in tier 1, which I've had conversations with Charles about, when you hear about the government talking about new technology, or talking about ML or AI or BI, I have constantly people coming after. I have a customer coming after me right now that's saying, I'll put you on a team, you'll get a sizable chunk, just give me MicroStrategy. If you can provide me MicroStrategy, because I can't find anybody who has MicroStrategy, I have BI because this customer uses it, just get on my team, provide me one of your members that has MicroStrategy. I'm not sure we have MicroStrategy, right? So if anybody has MicroStrategy, let me know. But great problem to solve, right? So this is where, as our tier expands, it can expand. Tier 1s have a lot of capability. So I told you the drivers in the system, in the PRM system now, are on what? They're on your company, they're also on your people. Your people have experience, right? And sometimes the government's looking more for your people than they are anything else. It's a major driver. You want to get beyond your past performance issue? Start offering up the right people, right? And we're going to talk about that because that's a big issue and we need to talk about that. So recruiting staff, specifically key personnel, right, is very, very important. But I don't stop at key personnel, right? I think the government recognizes low risk when you can staff the entire program, because then your costing is going to be really true, right? So it's harder to do. We don't do it fully, but we get as far as we can in most cases. It also makes the transition a lot easier. It also gives you tremendous intelligence when you're building your solution. Okay? So it's a lot of work. Most of us can't do that. Some of us can do that only. And that's okay, because that's important. And tier 1s have SMEs. Right? They've come out, they've had a background with an agency, with a program, with whatever it is. This is why when you sign into the PRM, your personal background is as important as your company background. Because we might not find anything in your company, but we may find it in your personal background. And that becomes valuable. That's a bartering chip for work share and all kinds of other things. And we'll hold it fair. So that's the purpose of the tier 1s. So tier 1s is a new formulation. We've stepped it down from tier 2. Eventually we had tier 2 and tier 3, right? Tier 2s also provide sub, but they would prime too at the task order level. Tier 3s have basically been kind of done away with. The only time that we would have a tier 3, right? Because really BIC is the tier 3, right? Only time we would have a tier 3 is if it's an 8A vehicle, like STARS or something like that, where BIC 1 cannot be the prime. Then we have to have a relationship, and BIC 1 supports the prime. That's totally separate. That's a different model. It works, it's not a problem, but that would be in the case of a tier 3. So tier 3 you'll rarely hear, but unless it's a vehicle that requires us to have a tier 3 strategy. Okay, next slide. This is just a little bit of what we're dealing with every day. Probably half this pipeline has to do with Jack, right? So these are all RFIs, they're all programs that are in tow, And you can see from gate 0, gate 1, gate 2, gate 3, gate 4, you can see where they're at. It's a lot of work. If I come after you, or if our people, Richie, or any of our other people come after you for a gap analysis and you hold on to it, it's not the only program we're doing, right? And we're busy, and we know you're busy. So we kept loggerheading with some of our people, and we said, gapping is only gonna increase, it's not gonna decrease. And I will tell you why. Gapping is the foundation of your executive summary. It's also the foundation of almost every RFI response that we put in. The chart goes directly into the RFI response as to why we're a purpose-built team that is built down to your functional requirements in the PWS directly, and we show them. So it's very important that we automate that process, and the PRM is doing that. The gap will be fully automated. And there's a lot of discussions on some of this technically, you're gonna see that. Yes, Jack?
I was just gonna say that the gap is critical for the reasons that Chris is mentioning, but it's even more critical because when that RFI response or source of salt response goes in, what Chris is trying to do is drive that requirement to a vehicle that we own, or that
Yes.
he owns. Because, these RFIs come out and they can be bought anywhere, any place.
Yes.
But what you've got to do is drive it to that vehicle, like Randy and Michael said, where you have the lowest number of average bids, per opportunity. So, you're not bidding against 500 other people, you're bidding against 4 other people on an average, or 1.9 on an average.
Yes, and that's critically important, and there are opportunities that can be driven to Randy, and we have to understand Randy's profile. Guess what? The good news is, I will tell you, and you'll see it later in the presentation, we're also profiling the government. So we will know who Randy is and what Randy wants, and we will know how to drive to Randy. That's next. That's not what we've done today, but that's next on our automation. Next slide. One last bit. Up in the corner here, we had in one of our channel calls, and this is very good, and you'll see it now, because these are spreadsheets, right? This stuff gets really hard to manage when you're spreadsheeting and all the data that sits behind this. This is all being automated now into the PRM. So the deal flow and dashboards and metrics are all being automated now up into the PRM. Up there in the right-hand corner is our production rate. So people wanted to know, what's your production rate? Okay, so we have a production rate. It's not as many as you would think, but it's more than anybody else is doing. So it's interesting. You're producing more, certainly at a level per budget or capita than the people you're working with. You're producing more than them with higher quality in my eyes. At the same time, you're not producing what they think you should be producing. So there's a letdown in expectation, and remember, we're producing for BIC 1. Sometimes, and you have to look at this when you look at a tier 3, a tier 2, and a tier 1 position. Sometimes you have a core team. Jack and I were just talking about this the other day, and you win 40 bodies on a contract, and we've got 2 companies or 3 companies that really were the foundational gap or past performance that were used for that. But there's more people that can be involved to share in that pie. Were you informed of that? No, you weren't, because we're at a stage where we don't need to bother you, we don't need to inform you. And so I would encourage this, that the production rates are important, and they will filter down to work share. That also gets into past performance capabilities. It also gets into resumes. I've gone to people where we say, Endeavor, you got 6 bodies, and he says, well, you got to start when? 30 days. 30 days, we got to start up. Government wants resumes and LOIs in here right now. I can give you 3. We got to find the other 2. That's you. So if you weren't one of the keys on key vendors in that program, we got to reach back and do that. That could happen with Karen. That could very well happen with Karen right now. And we're doing a resume run right now inside that program to be able to perform on that transition, because they're going to call and they're going to say, you're here next week. Let's go, bring your people, you know? And of course, they want you to identify them, right? So, and they gotta fit in the salary grade, and they gotta, you know, all that molding has to happen. That's an operational issue, but it can be solved in pre-PMO. Okay, next slide. Well, I got ahead of myself. So there are, you know, people evaluate us, it's costing me too much overhead. Is it? You have to really understand what it is we're doing and where we're going. Well, you know, we created a joint venture, you're all owners of that. We created a joint venture. I don't think we're too much of a hit to your overhead if you really understand what's going on in it. So, but it is a perception, right? We are a cost. This is where control comes in. And we know you need more control and you need more visibility. And if you get more control and more visibility, which is the purpose of the PRM, not only will you be a better steward, we'll have better conversations, you'll tell me about your magic, right? Because you got magic, you got people, you got things that we don't know. You got magic. I don't know what your magic is, right? What's your special power? We got power in this area. So we need to find out what that is, and the PRM is going to unlock that, because there is a lot of you have white papers, so we had to find a way to take the knowledge management and get it searchable, and to be able to have, not us, but you download that stuff in there so that we can find it and use it. Because you guys are busy, and we're not your only business development house, you have your own, right? Some of you are the presidents or CEOs of your company, like I am, and we wear a business development hat. We are responsible for revenue, right? So it's very important. So what happens is that we get also a squeaky wheel syndrome, and that could be all over in different areas of operation. So we know that automation, we know that control, all of these are symptoms of control, transparency, and communication, right? So we have to give more control, more transparency, and increase the level of communication. It also means that we have to put more staff on to be able to do that, especially in the caretaker roles, and so we're doing that, right? It's hard when you work on the kind of budgets we work on. I mean, Jack, you know the budgets that we work on. I mean, they're thin, right? So unrealistic expectations, that's a maturity issue. I can understand when certain people come to me and say, because if they don't have any control and they don't have any transparency and they don't have any visibility, when they have to write that check every month, they're asking themselves, what am I getting? So we have to do a better job there. The more work that you actually understand that we are doing in the development of systems like this, the more you will understand there is a timeline involved with this, there is an investment. We are investing together. You're not investing alone. He's not investing alone. We are investing together. So we're going to give you the platforms and the visibility, and we're going to work tirelessly 10, 12 hours a day, all right? But we got to do it together, right? So we want your input. We want your feedback. Next slide. Here's where the experience comes in. Individuals, you've heard me say it, have experience. And they also have a role that they play. And so we want that role of the individual, number one, for the individual to have a good experience, but we also want to know who those individuals are. We need to use them and tap into them. Partner experience, okay, that's the company side of it. So we're developing the individuals and we're developing the companies. And lastly, as we've already told you, we're bringing on the government's experience. The government does market research. Our agencies are asking us to let them into the portal to do their market research. We're going to do it, but we're going to do it when we're ready. You get one shot at that. You don't get multiple shots. So we're not there, but in 2022, the buyer portal will launch and buyers will come in there. So why do you want to be a part of the PRM? Why do you want to profile yourself? Because the buyers are going to be in there looking at you, right? And that may not come through us. We have a pipeline. I hope the buyer comes directly to you. I hope you come back to Big One and say, we don't have the vehicles they want to use under our label, but we'll go into we'll bring it to the channel, right? We'll bring it through Big One. That's perfect, and that's an identified lead that you register because the buyer's talking to you. Okay, of course we're going to be talking to the buyer too. They'll call us, and we'll field those calls. Very, very important. Where do you think our marketing investment's gonna go? Heavy, heavy, heavy marketing investment using our automated gap analysis and using everything we house directly into the buyer's direction. There's no system that does this. We have to build it, all right? So there is a little bit of patience. That's a word you're gonna hear a lot with the government, but once we get positioned, it's gonna break out. We're also gonna be able to take on more tier ones to be able to satisfy which we're really interested in relationships, right? So taking on tier ones or tier twos, it's not any tier one or tier two. This is not LinkedIn or Facebook. I don't want all the noise in there and then try and figure out how to satisfy the noise. That's not our charter. Our charter is to be in the ecosystem of our customers. It's the ecosystems I want. If I'm going to the Air Force and I know he has a relationship with the Air Force, I want all the companies and we will profile that, and I will go to all the companies that sit in that Air Force customer so that as efforts come out, he can draw in and start talking to the partners, we can formulate stronger teams. And we can give work share to other members too that want to be a part of that customer. Next slide. So PRM, we recently, and this is important, I want to let you know, PRM has us signing you up to exclusive or non-exclusive. If you are non-exclusive, you are tier one. You are not in a position of receiving strategy. You're not in a position where you can prime. You're not in any position but waiting for us to knock on your door and say, we see that you can perform this and we want you to have work share in that area, but it's not a strategic position. It's a caretaker position. You are a service contractor or a sub that's picked up when we need you, right? Now, we can call you to be a part of programs and you will be targeted for programs, but that tier one sits in your past performance and your key personnel. So you have to put information in. If you're not participating in the tier one, getting your data into the system, and so this spins off into other systems. So we have Duck and Owl, which is our personnel management system, which manages all the resumes. G4I Staffing is our staffing arm. They have technology as well. And that technology will be integrated with this technology. So as your personnel are brought into that system, they will be used for their subject matter and paid for their subject matter expertise, and we'll get to that in a second. And it will promote work share. So if you're marking no all the way across those, at some point if you mark no all the way across, you either step down to a tier one and we have to ask you if you should be a part of BIC one, because you probably should just be a part of the channel and let us utilize your resources. Being a tier two means you're strategic to the joint venture and you're working with the joint venture. Tier ones are really more into a resource capacity that are looking to get expertise, and so it's very, very important that you understand the distinctions there. Tier two is obviously, can be no on one or two. That would be, maybe you got on somebody else's team, I understand that, but it shouldn't be no all the way across, right? That means you're not playing our game, you're playing your own game. And you don't need to be on our team if you're playing your own game, because we're not getting any gain from you, and you're spending too much money to be there, to be honest with you. It's too much money, because you're not going to get the ride that you want out of that, in my estimation. Strategic planning, tier twos are where they come in, and you'll see that, tier threes and tier twos, strategic planning. Development of the BIC JV, channel management systems, knowledge management. These are all aspects that are services that our company's giving. So when we look back and we have to manage and maintain all these systems, grow them, design them, infuse them with data, which you're going to see here in our knowledge management system. I don't know how many documents are in our knowledge management system today, 2,000, 3,000. All solutions to environments. You want a SaaS, you want a PaaS, you want an IaaS, you want a cyber, all solutions are in there. So should help you be better at solutioning when you're looking at that. It's a resource library. Next slide. So we talked about the gap analysis, we talked about tiers. Gap analysis are important, as you can see there, because they deal with contracts, real contracts, on the upper area in the boxes. Those are real people, companies here in the room, real contracts, and in the functional areas of the PWS down the right. So functionally, we've identified in the blocks who that whole process is being automated. So having your past performance, ingesting all the PWS, and then having the PWSs automatically compare to one another will automatically rank and pull the companies in. That'll make it very quick for us. The fit analysis is the same way. It's just done on the resumes. Fit analysis has to do with resumes. And of course, PWS area and criteria. We are looking for subject matter experts to deal with that PWS, with that agency. And the trifecta is with that buyer. And your past performance, you have that. Next slide.
I have to ask a question.
Yes.
This is gonna be a war on words. If we use different words and we use different words and we don't calibrate between us on how to use the same damn words, we're not gonna be fitting on any of this.
Good idea. Yes, that's
And
true.
then whatever AI you use to do this, it's still gonna be a war on words. So we're gonna have to make sure that we have, all of us, an understanding of the portfolio, and let's call it the dictionary of wording that we need to adapt, because I may talk, because we talk different language. I'm hearing you, but
Yeah.
we talk different language.
Yeah, yeah, good
And
point.
your gap analysis is
Yeah.
different language for me, but I can adapt to it, but I need to have a good, strong list, so I can talk about my scientists.
So
my
Thomas, if you
engineers,
can
my
take down, that's a good point, and all the words that were, well, fit analysis, gap analysis people use, but fit analysis not used by many people. We will put an acronym dictionary together, automatic search. That's a good point.
Because that might help all of
Yes.
us to steer, and not lie, but steer the wording we choose.
Yes.
To fit better into what you
Yes.
guys are looking for, and therefore we
Yeah.
have the red face this,
Yes.
much faster.
Yes, so we'll, good point, we'll take that, and PWS is obviously the performance
listening.
work statement. Yeah, you sure are. And fit analysis is obviously has to do with the resume and the requirements, and the gap analysis is just that, it also is functionally to that. Okay, next slide. So dashboard and metrics will be one of the things that you will see coming out of this. So the dashboard and the metrics, we're looking at tilting up. That will come over time and whatnot. But again, we're looking at cutting down on canceled projects, right? Canceled projects happen because you haven't gapped properly. And in gate one, when we're moving through business development, we can't get a team to qualify. And management is very staunch on that. If we cannot get a team to qualify, we'll kill it. We're not gonna just be in the ether, which, if this was 15 years ago, man, I wouldn't even understand that. I was just an entrepreneur and I wanted to bid, right? So, but I didn't realize we had no chance in hell of winning anything because, we weren't really qualified. We didn't know how to qualify ourselves. So, fixing issues, here's an issue, which will increase the quality. Ineffectiveness, all of those things get stamped out by automating the systems. And of course, our lessons learned, our surveys and our audits, which will involve you, are really important. So every time you see that little fireworks in the right-hand corner, we've recognized that. Everywhere you see in this presentation where that at, those are things that we're working on. Those are automated things that you have to be a practitioner to know and to be able to work on and be able to solve. Next slide. And so we have strategy, pursuit, and ecosystems, right? We have, of course, the strategy, the pursuits, and the ecosystem that sits up there. The ecosystem is really the customer's favorite vendors. And we know because we're mapping their awards. And they're awarding to these vendors over and over again on this type of work. So we need to pull them into our ecosystem, and that's what we're doing. And so down here, that research that's being done up there is being done to enhance our ecosystem, which is you. Inside here, building better partners inside the channel that you can partner with that are going in the same direction. Now remember, today there's 4 agencies, not 63, not 80,000 buying offices, 4 agencies. But that's okay. 4 agencies on $40 billion IDIQs, they put out a lot of work. None of us can do that much work. So let's just be successful at that, and then we can spread our wings. Okay? Next slide. So what we're trying to support, obviously, in the channel services, we'll eventually get into global support as we have to with OCONUS. With FedSim, we're gonna have to have that, right? Again, that's gonna have to happen. Expert services, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Channel Center of Excellence, channel engagement, the PRM zone, all things that we'll be developing that will have an impact on your control, your visibility and transparency. I won't get too deep into that because they really need to be taken one at a time. I'm just telling you that we're heading in that direction, and a lot of this will be brought out. The system has the capability, but it needs to be designed. So we're designing reporting, we're designing all kinds of dashboards, all kinds of other things to be able to do it. Next slide. So one of the things that you'll see that Charles will be talking about as we go through the onboarding is he will take you over to the libraries. And in the libraries, you're gonna see the content management. In the content management, and we brought this up probably 6 months ago, right? But it wasn't accessible. It was hard for us to make it accessible. We had the rights to make it accessible, we didn't have the platform to make it accessible, right? And so people don't have time to be calling us and say, hey, do you have anything in your library that does this or that? And we don't want those calls, by the way. That has to be automated. So it is automated now. So thousands of documents that are now in the knowledge management will be accessible by you. And you'll see that today when this is gonna help you build solutions. It's gonna help you do just about everything from a technical standpoint. Remember the word, we keep using the word SME, which is subject matter experts, right? Even subject matter experts need good data, need relevant data, need recent data. Things are changing all the time. So you're gonna have access to all of that data, and Charles will be able to open that up and show you. We're about halfway, not even halfway, in loading up just the knowledge management. The body of knowledge, which is the processes that we're talking about, will also be loaded. So you'll be able to get the processes to understand how we do things and why we do things. And it will better allow you to mature your own organizations utilizing the tools that we're putting in there. Next slide. And there are other libraries too, but I won't go into that. So, you know, again, the agency, looking at the importance of knowledge management, really centers around the agency ecosystems that we'll be pulling things in, the communities, which are yourself, your data will be in there. Your data is not in the content area, your data is in your own company area, because you're the administration of your company area. You get to turn things on and off. You get to decide who sees what, who gets invited, but all your data needs to be in your area. What we're hoping is that you'll allow us to have access to certain data so we can look at your white papers, we can look at those things. There will be a common publish, a co-branded area where we will co-brand information together, and that Charles will be showing also. It's very powerful. The tool is extremely powerful, and it's being molded in the right direction. Next slide. So all of that noise, STAHL Consulting, having built systems over the years, I mean, again, we built ePipeline, we built Privia, all tools that are still being used today in the market 15, 20 years later, and really have had no advancements in the last 15 or 20 years from where we left it, right? We're now looking at the embodiment of all the tools out there. We're selecting the best tools and we're customizing them. That's what we're doing. So what you're seeing is a constant evolution around these areas that are taking you from research into active pursuits, into operational, and it involves a lot of data. Next slide. And it involves ecosystems, which are equally important. Picking the right ecosystems for the trajectory of where we're going is very important. You pick opposing ecosystems and you have a lot of problems, right? You don't get the relationships, you don't get the open doors that you want. Your ecosystems have to be married up in a direction where they need to go also. This is a very noisy slide. I only want you to focus on the expand, the Partner Portal. This is the area that we're focused on right now. Getting your products and services into the systems and catalog. Being able to manage projects from the inception all the way through the completion and submission of proposals and then on down into the PMO. Better communication, developing a marketplace where you guys can interact also. and having the right marketplace. We don't want noise. Again, it's not it's not a Facebook, it's not a LinkedIn, it's not a common marketplace where people just go and do whatever they want. It's got to reach the goals of BIC 1 because BIC 1's got to reach your goals. So we're only interested in how it supports BIC 1. So all of that is being set up in your direction using your information. Surveys, libraries, assets, you know, they are to each company that's in here. You have your own of those, surveys, libraries, and assets. And we do too. So you're gonna see ours, right? We have our own survey, like, you know, BIC 1's gonna have one that BIC 1 creates. And each individual is gonna have their own that fosters and adds on to that. Very, very important. Next slide. How are we doing on time? Okay, so I think I'm close, guys. In 60 minutes, I think I'm close. Okay, so control. You've heard me talk about that several times. We're trying to give you over what you will perceive is full control, right? Yet we're really in control of BIC 1, but you need control also, right? So that control area, you know, starts with us in program management, but that relies on your past performance and your capabilities. That's what it relies on. That's how we build out. Focus, control, and agility, decisions for pursuits. So we're trying to continue to make it affordable, because we know that you look at it as an outsourcing initiative, even though you're an owner of the company. It's still seen as an outsourcing initiative, and that's fine. There's no issue with that. We're trying to make the usage very simple for you, so you gain good satisfaction, and everybody is sustainable, repeatable processes that can make it work, right? And we're going to continue to architect and design these systems, lowering your cost, increasing the collaboration, and driving revenue. And then hopefully overall it's saving us time because that's increased production. Not sacrificing quality, it's using automation to increase production and keeping quality as a standard. Next slide. Oh, last thing up there at the top, very important, I should have started with that. Your magic, you've heard me talk about magic. Let me talk about this again because I really need you to hear this message. It's really important to us. Your magic is your SME and your expertise. I go into efforts every day where STAHL is going to write a baseline, right? Jack knows, we can write some decent stuff, right, Jack? I mean, but we write a baseline to the requirements of the PWS. We are not the subject matter experts in your field. I have cyber experts. I write most of the cyber. I'm not a cyber guy. But I've learned, right? I've learned a lot. So now I would say I have pretty good experience in cyber, but it's from doing a lot of cyber efforts and doing a tremendous amount of research and working with cyber companies to pull it out of them, right? And then we learn about the MITRE frameworks and we learn about all the other aspects of things that go on. But when my cyber expert or my DevOps expert or my whatever experts tells me that they don't have time to support the effort, then magic is gone. We're going to submit something. What do you think our chance of winning is? There's no magic, and the customer will sense it. They will see it. Now, we might get lucky, and that's why we like task orders, because every now and then on a task order, you can get by with, get lucky where there's, 3 or 4 people that all did the same vanilla thing, and they have to choose one. We would hope not to be in that situation. That certainly is not a business model for success. We need your expertise. We need you to help us in the functional expertise areas of the solution. You have to give us time there. And you have the past performance. We're not calling you because we're asking you to do something you can't do. We already know you can do it because we've already mapped your past performance directly to the functional requirements. So the question is, are you going to call that PM? Are you going to call that subject matter expert? Or are you going to help us? That's a behavioral issue, and we solve that with points distribution. So we are now setting up a points distribution on behavioral sciences of our community so that we can rate people to see how much they are actually assisting the team in winning. Because our report card is dependent on your report card, right? So very, very important. So our program management, administration, and automated platforms, we're giving it. Our people are giving it here 6 days a week. How many hours you work, Charles?
12 hours a day.
I know, it's a lot of hours, but it's okay. We love what we do. That's why, or we wouldn't be here, right? We need to fall in love with each other. That's the basis of this meeting, right? We've got some folks that aren't here today. It's unfortunate. It's an important message. I think we're going in the right direction. I think in 2022, you're going to see some awards that are going to be pretty impressive, because in the last year, we've done some pretty good work. Okay, so the magic tells us how to go faster together, because the more we understand about you, the more you understand, you'll be able to support us, and the more we'll be able to automate around that. Next slide. One of the areas is the Partner Locator, so we're focusing on that right now. So as you drop your information in, the Partner Locator, the first standpoint of this is onboarding. And that's what you're gonna do today. You're onboarding. You're putting all your data into the system, right? Well, not all your data. You're putting your compass, what I call the compass data, what NAICS code, what buyers you currently do business with. You're putting the compass into the system, which helps us understand the direction that you want to go. Don't be worried today if you don't fill out everything. We're going to have a couple hours to do that. If we don't get all the way home, then we'll reach back behind, we'll continue, and because there might be some dialogue that's needed, right? Some of you are emerging yourself into the government space, there's going to be a lot of questions. Some of you have difficulties in the government space because you're in the black world, or there are difficulties, believe me. There are workarounds for that, right? It's just understanding how to get the data in there so that we can understand it. Our first thing is past performance, which we immediately go to CPARs, right? CPARs, if you don't know how to write a CPARs, you are doing yourself a grave injustice. Because that's what the government's using when they look in the database to see if you can do the PWS work. My CPAR would be fairly lengthy if I could get it there, and it would cross a lot of functional requirements and categories out of drop in the PWS of the contract you're working on. I would do that. Okay, so CPARs is a little bit tricky, but if you don't have a CPARs, or if your CPARs is just not up to date, and we'll tell you because we'll be reviewing it, then you write a PPQ, and you go further and write the PPQ so that we have it on file. Guess what? If you take the time to write the PPQ, I won't come to you on 6 or 10 bids this year and ask you to write a PPQ, because we'll have it already pre-written. I might have to tweak it or do whatever, but it takes a lot of work off your plate and allows us to do it. So we need to get the past performance from you, and we'll have a PPQ form that'll be in there. Let's say that your past performance is not robust, right? You have minimal past performance. We have companies in this channel that are $1 million all the way up to $30 million, right? And then they start breaking out, now you're a mid-tier, right? You can't be a part of a small business JV when you're a mid-tier, okay? So we have companies that are somewhere in that migration path. I think you're 6 million, right? Great size. 3 million, okay, great size, okay? But he would like to double. He'd like to be 6 million, okay? So that's great size, okay? But there are companies in here that are 28 and 30 million, okay? So there, you get to merge that and get the dynamics out of that. One thing that you can do if you're on the smaller end, SMEs and personnel, right? In every contract, we're looking for a SME to help us design or develop, and I don't need you to write management plans and quality control plans. I don't need you for that. We can do that. I need you to help me write the solution. And that's what we're doing. We're doing solutioning, right? And so we need the SMEs to help us with the solutioning, and beyond that is key personnel, right? Recruiting for the key personnel. That's been a little kludgy over the last year. It won't be going forward. It'll be very straightforward. It won't be a phone call from Richie saying, hey, can you guys help me on this or help me on that? It will be a data call. It will come directly from the system right into you saying, here's the pursuit we're going after, here's the SMEs we need, and yeah. If it's a key personnel, it's gonna be a best athlete. If it's staffing, then we'll try and give you work share, right? Give us the resumes, because if we can staff, you're gonna have work share. we got to get to SCMC, certified vendors. A lot of things you heard from Lynn this week, that the CMMC training now is put off again. So yep, it will happen, but can't say I'm sad to see that happen. I'm kind of happy. It's bad because, you know, a lot of you signed up and whatnot, but man, I hope they stay with CMMI and ISO and, you know, stay with those NSF factors. Okay, NIH, I'm sorry. So buyer ecosystem. Again, buyer ecosystem is really, really important. So we're looking at your buyers and we're looking at their ecosystems, and then we're going to be looking at logistics, partner locations. You know, it'd be nice to have in a proposal to show the depth and breadth of a JV and the logistics around it, because the government's always interested in the reach back, because the one thing that they're deathly afraid of is that, you know, I think Jack was telling me the other day that, hey, sometimes we get in these contracts and sometimes we can't fill a position for 2 months. That doesn't mean you don't get paid. So the government knows you're getting paid. But you don't have anybody out there working, but that's the way the contract was negotiated. That's why they ask you about your retention rates. So if that's happening, yeah, you're profiting, but guess what's happening to your CPARs? Right? So trade-offs, you know, so very important. We need to map our logistics. It can happen. Next slide. So we're working on a partner locator. It relies on your DNA. Okay, it starts with your DNA. DNA is past performance, you know, people, locations, areas that you're working. You might have a past performance. I mean, some of these contracts service 90 government sites within the federal government. You know, it's pretty interesting. There are discriminators. So major discriminators, which you can understand that some of this marketing is being flipped over in the same concert, and we're going right to the government with it. We're taking this information right to the government, but from the buyer's perspective, right? It's pretty powerful, and it's working. So these are all the areas: program management, content management, partner program management, deal registration. All of that's going to be done on the PRM, and you'll see that this afternoon. We won't get into deal registration. That's next. So we've got to get the DNA. We've got to get everybody in. We've got to get everybody stood up. And then pursuits are going to immediately come over, and and dashboards will be up there. The metrics will be up there. You'll see all of it. Some people have said, well, you should have had this system when we joined. There is no system. It doesn't exist. You've looked at a lot of systems. Have you ever seen a system that does this? There are a lot of point systems, and you'd have to have a bunch of them to do what we're talking about. And this is one of many systems that we have, right? So it's not the only, but it does a lot of stuff, and it ties into the CRM. We don't write proposals in the system. That goes over into our CM and is encrypted, and of course you've got this wonderful technology from Microsoft that allows everybody to be in the Word document at the same time and tracking changes and all that stuff. So the problem with it is, if he has 1,000 people in his company, I can give them 1,000 seats on this system, and we can be dynamic. I can have every sales agent that he has across the United States. I don't necessarily want to do that with SharePoint, right? That's a lot of money, right? That's going to cost licenses, ons, off, and permissioning is very big. They have a much smaller nucleus of engineering and proposal people, right? But they have a lot of people in the organization. So this system allows us to really expand that, to get the depth and breadth of all those program management people, all those people in there, so that they can be working on, and it gives you more visibility. If I was a small company, I'd start plowing people in there because their credentials and their information that you have around your networks will get used, right? The calls will happen, you will start to be used. Next slide. Thank God. Last slide, guys. I apologize, and then we can go eat some food and talk, and we'll come after this. We have a very small presentation because we are migrating over to the task orders now. And so this has to do with PMO, not pre-PMO. So pre-PMO is now navigating over to PMO, and we're starting to issue awards and task orders out to the members of the channel, of the big one. So these are the things that, of course, we're designing and architecting. We're incorporating best practices. We're relying on sustainable, repeatable processes and automation to increase the maturity and the legacy People don't think about legacy. Every program, you saw that list of programs, that was like a tenth of what we're working on. It's a tenth. Every one of those programs, and I'll tell you, it goes by in a blink of an eye. I have one right now, award that we got, which is 20 million, that's coming back around, and I'm like, where did 3 years go? We got that award 3 years ago, and we're now 6 months out from that thing hitting the street again. We have the awarded contract, we know the numbers, you know, shouldn't be hard to win. Legacy is very important. As you guys mature with this channel, as your investments are made, all of that legacy is gonna come to roost to you. Those awards are gonna come back around, and you're the companies that are gonna be situated with it. So the legacy, and then all of the roles and the processes that you see there are being managed, and that's being set up on our ecos and our 365 integration. There's a lot of tools here. We're just going over PRM today, but you'll see as the tools envelop themselves across an organization that has a platform from end to end. I don't care if you're talking about recruiting, I don't care if you're talking about billing or whatever you're doing. Next slide. Okay, that's it. That's where we're gonna come back after lunch. So it was a long presentation. It's a lot of, it's data overload. You'll get a copy of this, and hopefully you can digest it, think about it. If you have any questions, as you get into the PRM system is being taken by bite size. There's really 4 areas that you're gonna be focused on. The PRM system probably has 20 areas, right? But we're only focused on 4 areas currently that will allow us to then build out and continue to do this rollout. As we roll out more of the modules on the PRM system, we'll have events like this. We only do this once a year. They will be virtual events, so you'll have your caretakers on there, and we will be rolling out to however many people in your company that you want to be a part of that. Sometimes they divide them up, you know, in different areas. You know, your marketing, your BD, your proposals, whatever it is, and sometimes it's one person that's trained the trainer. I don't really care. You can have as many seats on it as you want to be able to get what you need and service your organization. Also increase the control and the communication. Thanks, everyone. Please enjoy.
One more person.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, come on. I told him that I was going to do that. Give us your elevator. Tell us who you are, and I know who you are, but tell us who you are.
Obi Spratling. I'm one of the guys, my name's not up there next to Bravo Tango, but Rob Gerald is our president. I'm the director of operations. We're one of those small, new, dynamic, up-and-coming companies that focuses primarily on those relationships that you talked about with the Army, Joint Staff, and DoD as a whole, some of those systems that you talked about. But again, my name is Obi Spratling. I'm looking forward to continuing. We've been part of this about a year.
Yep.
And we've watched the evolution of the system, and I'm excited about it. So good to see you all. I remember you from the last.
Yeah, and Obi, they contacted us last week, and we had some discussions about, which is a very fair discussion, and the discussion that Obi had was, hey, exactly how many efforts are we involved with? There's no way for him to tell that, right? Because we don't have this system. But in the future, he'll be able to go in the system and see everything that he's involved with, because they're all assigned, right? Everything will be registered and assigned. Sometimes you'll be registered into a program. You will have had some ability to contribute, and that'll be broken down to what that means. But it may not even happen where we have a conversation between each other. It just went down that way. You were incorporated in for these reasons. You gapped, or you gave it, or you had a resume, and of course we would have verified that, right? We don't just use things without verification and acceptance. But that increases the interplay and the control, and everybody has investors or a board or somebody that they have to report to about what this investment is doing. So that control you need. So we're building that. That's happening right now. And that will solve that noisy problem that was going on in the center there. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a soft launch, guys. You got to give us some time. So I would say that this will really be accelerating the first of the year. You'll be giving us a lot of feedback, you'll be using it. We need your data in there, we'll be learning how to use the data, and we'll be smartening the system up. And when we get out of, I think, the January timeframe, as people start coming back from vacation, so 2022 is gonna be an exciting year, and I think we're gonna see a lot of awards. I mean, it's our anticipation.
Good question. So
Yeah.
what's the plan for Pinpoint?
So Pinpoint is, so what happened is that we let go of Pinpoint, and I'll tell you why. When we looked at Pinpoint, Pinpoint is a heavy document management company. Redundancies were found here and were found there. We don't need redundant systems. Sometimes you do, right? So what we did is we divided up the archives. And so what sits down at this end is all your Marcom business development and everything that tells us who you are. On the SharePoint side now, we're using SharePoint for all of the intellectual property that comes in on the proposals and all of that type of stuff, which is the reuse information. And you really won't have access to that. We will be helping if you ask. I mean, at some point we might release that. Right now, I'm not comfortable enough to do that because it's very proprietary to people's information that's in there. That will have to be a discussion. But right now, all the archives and the legacy sits inside Microsoft, right? And libraries are being cataloged. So just to let you know, what's happening inside there right now is full proposals, down to proposal plans, down to our ratings that are happening. So we're really putting a best of class for the proposals that have succeeded and the proposal plans that were rated very high. Those are all going to be reuse items. So our PDMs that come in will have all of that reuse there. We've learned a lot about PDMs in the last couple of years, and the behavior is horrible. So PDMs have to stop writing boilerplate crap. And it's what they're writing. They're writing boilerplate crap. Because you know why? They don't get the SMEs. They don't get what we're talking about here. They just don't. And so we've kind of created that as an industry, right? So we're reshaping industry. So we're reshaping that because you know what? That doesn't win. I'm not interested in that. So I can't tell you how many PDMs I've gone through. 20 in the last year at least. They just don't measure up, and they're really hard to retrain because our PDMs come with an attitude that they're saving the day because that's what we've told them. We hit them, work weekends, work nights. No, you're not going to get any support. Just do it. So the hero mentality took shape, and now we're trying to retool them and retrain them and say, why isn't your executive somebody talking about a purpose-built team? Why isn't your proposal filled with all the past performance directly to the PWSs that show our capability? Why? And then, what are you talking about? So they don't really understand. So, you can get a good one out of Lockheed or Raytheon or something like that. The cost is unaffordable for us at this level. You're talking about $200,000 people. These are really calibrated and trained, right? We're working on budgets that are much different than that. It's just one person. So we are building the systems and the processes that will allow us to retrain an industry to do it right. And it'll be so laid out for them. It'll be so automated and so laid out for them that if they can't do it, then there's a real problem. And that will allow us, I will tell you right now, we are training paralegals. Paralegals start and support attorneys who understand contracts. And I've tried to train so many PDMs, and it's so hard and so terrible, I've given up. I'm not doing it anymore. So I'm training paralegals who understand contracts, and we're gonna start making that role, and I'll train the paralegals how to do this business. And they'll be happy because they get beat up by the attorneys anyway. I mean, it's a different paradigm, right? So they're moldable, they're smart, they understand forensic detail, and they can follow a plan. So we're doing things like that.
Let me add one thing. So one thing, most of you in here should have gotten an email already around 10 o'clock today that will allow you to log into the PRM system. So It allows you to set your password, and then, once you do that, you'll be able to get directly into the PRM system. So, I need to know those companies here that have not got it, so you need to be set up, right? So did you
Yeah,
send?
I sent an email to.
Okay, so we'll get you,
Yeah.
set- you need it too,
I
right?
sent an email as well.
Who else,
I got an
got
email,
yours,
but
right?
it's telling me my account's not active.
Yeah, same.
it's not active yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so so I need to get you approved. So, I need to know who needs to be approved. We've got it
So
here.
I got all the emails in, thank
Okay,
you very
good,
much.
good. So we'll work on that at lunch.
Yeah, we have a waiting room. Not anybody can just come into this, so, I mean, we have
Yeah, we've got to
competitors and
approve
everybody.
you, you know.
So you end up in a waiting room, it has to be approved, and then you're allowed to enter. Also, part of that is so that we get your detailed information, and so, we need to know who we're dealing with, very, very important.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think looks, they should have food out there, so.
Yeah, they should.
Let's break,